Welcome to today's episode of Discussing Digital. And today I'm discussing digital with Sheryl Andrews. Sheryl, would you like to kind of give an introduction about your business to start with, and then we'll start talking about how you use digital marketing?
Fabulous. So I'm Sheryl Andrews, but I'm also known as the Listening Detective, and my company's called Step by Step Listening. And in essence, the short answer is I help people achieve success without stress. And that stress, if you're stressed at work, it tends to impact home. If you're stressed at home, it'll impact work. So it's really about you finding out what success is for you and how do you get from where you are now to where you want to be without being stressed about it.
A lot of business owners these days, certainly small business owners, do get stressed out about feeling the need to do digital marketing, but feeling overwhelmed. So I think that'd be interesting for us to maybe explore as we go along today.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Brilliant. Okay. So to start with, would you like to just talk about a little bit about the different elements of digital marketing that you do and sort of so just kind of like what works for you and how you go about doing it?
Yeah. So I think the thing to put into context, I've been self-employed since 2008. I've been on Facebook since it started. Well, no, actually, that's not true. I think I've been on there 15 years and I think it's older than that now, isn't it? So I think probably Facebook was my first port of call that I started with, and then LinkedIn. And I am predominantly, they're the two I work with, and mainly LinkedIn nowadays. So I do social media posting. I've got a newsletter that goes out called Success Without Stress updates on a Wednesday morning. I blog write. I run it's the plan this year is to probably churn it into a podcast, but I do and as you know, Make It Happen Monday video where I either interview people to find out what motivates them or how they get success without stress, that sort of stories. And that goes out on YouTube. So I tend to do live video broadcasting. What else am I? I probably do more than I realise, and it's only now I'm reading it all off to you that I realise what I've been doing. I think that, and I get interviewed like this. This has been another thing that I will do. I also do speaking, but then I guess I use that as assets for when on my social media.
Yeah.
So I think the other kind of digital marketing is photography. So I make sure I have photo shoots. I have live photo shoots. So I'm doing it my very first speaking gig, which I'm so excited about next Friday. I'm traveling up to the Midlands and actually going to be live. Brilliant. So I've booked a photographer to make sure I've got me speaking, because that will be the digital asset that I will use from that. Yeah. Because I want to get more of those speaking gigs. So photography is another way. Video. I think that's probably it, though.
Yeah.
Unless you've seen anything that I've forgotten.
No, I think you've covered a lot of stuff there already. But also, I think you've touched on a really important point already, where you're saying about photography and backstory and things like that. Because one of the challenges and one of the things that does stress people out is how do they make content regularly and find the time for it. So actually, the whole concept of, as you touched on there, well, I'm doing this, but actually as part of it, I'm going to be doing stuff that's digital that I can use digitally, but also I can repurpose a number of times in different places. I think it is a really important way, a strategy and a way of thinking. Because people do spend all the time going, oh my God, what am I going to write? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And it is a challenge.
Absolutely. And I think that's, as you know, I tend to work from, getting people from overwhelm to clarity. And that, I think the biggest thing with social media, and I know this isn't the tip you asked me for at the end, excuse me, mate, sorry, is that we tend to compare ourselves with people who probably have got massive budgets that can pay teams to do stuff. So I think the thing to remember, I'm saying this to you guys now, I have someone who helps with my blog writing. I have somebody that helps me curate my newsletters. I have people that, my son does a lot of my video editing when it needs editing. So yes, I've built it up to that now, but I would have started with just writing one blog post a month. Yeah. So I think it's remembering that we're all on a journey. And whilst you might see someone doing lots, people go to me, oh, you're all over the place. It's like, well, it's easier now because I've got systems and processes in place and I've been doing it a long time. And if I can't think of something to say, I go and recycle something from 4 years ago because it's the similar messages. I just have to tweak it.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that causes the most stress is people compare themselves not with like, and they're forgetting the journey, or they don't even know the journey. They're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. I've spent thousands on marketing training. I've invested in people within my company So it didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen without investing in it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where most of the stress is. You're not comparing like for like.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very good. And another point you actually pulled out there is the kind of concept of a lot of things that people produce can be reused. So quite often, I did a blog, a year ago, and it's just kind of, it's buried on their website and things like that. But actually, quite often, most of that stuff is still relevant. It's like I know the digital marketing is evergreen, but you can there's nothing wrong in going, hey, look, here's a post I did or a blog I did last year that you might not have seen, because in that time you will have grown your following, and so different people will be seeing what you're posting. So I think that's a really, really good point.
And I think we just forget what we've already produced. It's like I've written a book. So the reason I've got someone doing blogs is I just said to her, right, can you read the book? Can you take a blog from this chapter, and so I've got the content there, but it's a chapter full of it, so somebody else can be more succinct, and they just captured it. She wrote me 3 blogs when she thought she only wrote me 1, because I was actually happy to make those into 3 individual blogs. So you've often got a lot of content in your stuff already. Somebody suggested me before, transcribe your videos, but I do know that I don't talk as clearly as I train when I'm having a conversation with somebody. But it is another opportunity, or an option, is I could transcribe my videos and put those into blogs. There is so much resource available that we forget to use it. And I think the biggest thing is that, the work you're doing with your clients. The biggest thing I had to learn to do was actually remember to write down some of the things that they'd said.
Yes.
The biggest challenge I've got is that a lot of what I work with people is quite confidential, and so I have to be very careful not to mention people straight away. I'm very fortunate I've got people, again, it's a longevity thing. I've been working with people over a longer period of time. Now they know that they're going to be successful. They're not fearful of it. So if I describe a scenario, they will know it's them, but they will know that nobody else will know it's them, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Yeah. So you kind of
I have to be really careful. It's a real challenge I had with my work. So I because I've been doing it a long time now, I've got stories from people that were 10 years ago who that it's done and dusted, and they're over it and everything's sorted. Whereas the people I'm working with right now, it's still quite raw. And so I have to learn to put that information somewhere and then park it until they're the other side of the change.
Yes. Yeah. And sort of linked to that and all the conversations we already had before, one of the things I was going to ask you about is you do this, you'll Make It Happen Monday video, which is like a vlog, and as you said, can become a blog, etc. So I've sort of not had much time, I'll be honest with you, to watch a few of them, so apologies for that. But do they tend to cover off things like that you've just learned, or something that's just happened, as you say, anonymized, but something that's just happened where you're working with a client, or
I've got a bit more organized recently. So one of the things we talked about before we came online is about how stressed people get, and seeing the marketing or the digital stuff, or you've just mentioned it just now as well, haven't you, about it being a separate job to do. So what's worked for me is to have themes, so that I know that, because then, and it helps everybody's brain, because otherwise you've got too much information. So I tend to I've got a planner. I'll show you it, but this is my planner for this month, and I've already got next month's is already up there ready. So as I get ideas, if something comes up, so I already know that I'm going to be following this kind of idea. So the Make It Happen Monday has a sort of structure of, here's a problem that I've either heard someone talk about, or I've solved, or maybe someone's asked me to do a video about something sometimes. I will then tell a bit of a story, and then I'll share some questions they could ask themselves for them to get their own clarity about it. And then I always finish with the clean setup process, which is, what would you like to happen? How do you need to be? And what resource and support do you need? Which basically, one of the things I want to get across to people who are reading and consuming a lot of social media stuff is that we end up in overwhelm, because we end up with so much stuff going in, but not stopping to make a conscious decision what we're going to do with the information we've just heard. So Make It Happen Monday is really about, here's some stuff I've heard, or I might be interviewing a couple of weeks time. It's next month, actually. I'm interviewing a lady that we're running a program about sleep. So we're going to be sharing the research that we've been doing, because some people don't sleep because they're stressed, and some people get stressed because they're not sleeping. So I'll interview her about sleep, and then I'll ask the audience, now that you know what you've been listening to us, what would you like to have happen? What are you going to do with this information? And that's the big thing about Makeup and Monday is it's great you're listening to me, but now take some time to listen to yourself.
Yeah, that all makes very, very good sense. And the do, delegate or ditch thing that you just mentioned there kind of leads us on quite nicely to another thing we were discussing beforehand, is the fact that actually that's the title of a book that you are about to launch.
Well, I'm not committing to the launch date because I have to, and that's probably a no-no for every coach out there, but it's me understanding my own process and what works. But the book's called Do, Delegate or Ditch, and it's called The 7 Principles of Motivated Action. And it was actually, I think this is where some of the stress comes from, social media, is you don't want to feel shame or embarrassment or a failure in public. So I use social media to tell people about what I'm writing and what's coming up, and I get people to be interviewed and get research questions, and I love that two-way process. But my book was due to be launched and published in June 2020, and it came back from the editors in March 2020, and I read it and I just thought, it's pants. I really didn't like it, and it's my work, and it wasn't me being overcritical. So just to put things in perspective, my first book was Manager Critic, From Overwhelm to Clarity, and that was published in 2016. And when that came back from the editor, I was like, oh God, that's good. Did I write that? And this one, I just couldn't put my finger on it, but something was missing, which is ironic because that's often what people come to me for, because they know something's not quite right, but they can't put their finger on it.
Yeah.
And so I've shared that journey publicly. I've shared it in my newsletter. I've let people know that I know something's missing, and I also know I chose the deadline of June 2020 because this lovely group of people who I am actually going to speak to in February was so lovely to me, and they wanted me to come back when my book was launched. So I just picked a date out of the head and said, okay, I'll come back in June next year with my book. But I hadn't sat down and thought about what's involved. So I pushed myself to meet the deadline, and inadvertently had missed out some really crucial information. Yeah. So I had to walk my talk really with the book. So it's taken me 2 years to do the research, to really dig down and actually go, what is it that's missing? And it was the principles that hold the whole process together that I hadn't written about. And I discovered 2 of them I wasn't living. I was advising other people to do it, but I wasn't doing the do. Right. And I'm someone that will not publish until I'm walking the talk.
Yeah.
And so the book writing forces me to pay attention to what works for my clients and take my own advice, ultimately.
Okay, no, that's really good. So obviously, hopefully it's not.
I am hoping it'll be out. I am hoping it's going to be June this year. 21st of June is the date that I'm working towards.
Okay.
And I am working proactively on it.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of nervousness.
Yeah, and I won't push you. Yeah, obviously won't push you on the date, although you have just said it on video.
Yeah, the universe has now been told the longest day of the year, the book will be here.
But obviously, how do you foresee using digital marketing to actually promote the launch and post-launch of that? Have you got a strategy in place, or any thoughts, or how did you do it with your previous book?
Well, what I will not do is I'll go and speak to Karen Williams, who's my book mentor, and I know that she has a 30-day book launch blueprint thing. So I know that I'll go through that. But from memory, basically the thing is you're doing a countdown. So once I know the manuscript is back with the editor, and this time I'll have to wait for it to come back from the editor, because I just need to know in my heart of hearts I'm not, because I will feel a bit foolish if I'm honest, if I give another date out and I miss it. It would be hard to actually take that publicly. To do it privately is not so bad. Once I'm absolutely confident it's coming, then because it's taken me so long, I probably will make a real field day of that and tell the stories about it, because it felt embarrassing. I felt real shame when I missed that deadline in June. So I will tell those stories about the book writing process. I'll share it with the audience as I go through, so that it'll come out in my posts, it'll be out in my newsletters. I will start, I'm very sure I'm going to be doing crowdfunding because the publishing costs are, they're not cheap. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason I think I also held back and why it didn't take, I was really busy during lockdown. So I was physically didn't have the time and headspace. But also I didn't have the capital to put into this. So I know partly I was sabotaging it because I didn't have the capital. So I'll be doing some crowdfunding. Yeah. But mostly what I'll be doing is going to everybody I know and love, like you, Rob, and saying, hey, I've got this book coming out. Do you fancy sending something out to your newsletter list? Mm-hmm. Because I do that for other people. And so I'll call on my network and ask them if they can help me spread the word and tell other people that the book's coming out. And then there'll be a book launch on Amazon, which we'll have a big countdown to, which will be public. I'll probably have a physical party now that we're allowed to meet in people. And that again, then there'll be assets from that photography. Then after that, it will be handing my book to my blog writer and saying, can you write some blogs out of that? So that then it'll become the thing that I use. And then my blog writing becomes easier because I've already done all the distilling and put it into one place. And I can just hand the document over to somebody else and say, actually, can you cut those down into blog posts so we can put them in out to the public?
I think that's a really, really good way you've described all the different things that you can use from the whole experience all the way through to actually publishing it. And then you, again, about repurposing stuff to actually help you with that whole, where am I going to get content from? Which, as we said right at the start, is something that stresses a lot of people. And it's certainly something I've always tried to advocate is we know it's hard. We know you've got a limited amount of time. So how can you do something you can repurpose a number of times? Or even.
And just to add to that as well, I think that with the listening detective hat on, I think too many people, especially sole traders and small business owners, it is their wisdom that needs to be written about. Mm-hmm. And they think because it's their stuff, they should do it on their own. And I think they forget or don't even know that to access some of our own wisdom, we often have to hear it outside. So that's where having a coach or somebody like a clean facilitator actually repeating your stuff back to you and helping you tease it out and organize your thoughts can help you get the clarity of what you want to write or what you want to produce. And also remind you of your journey, how you got into business and why you do what you do, help you track the progress and the journey your clients go on, which then becomes this pool of information that you can dip into anytime you like to actually use it as a resource to write about, talk about, share. And so I think it's really valuable when people can come together in a collective environment. And I think I should also, I'm part of the LinkedIn Collective with Alice. I'm part of a Facebook Academy with Susie, because I know that for my brain to have ideas, I need to be in an environment where people are sharing them.
Yeah.
So I don't come up with this stuff on my own.
No.
But I struggled a long time trying to.
Yeah. And I think, that as you say, is a challenge. And it is, I keep saying there's nothing new out there and you should be able to learn stuff. But then again, in a previous interview, I did go 2 years ago, TikTok didn't exist, nor did Clubhouse. So there are always new things that come out. But for the majority of things, it's not that big a change. One thing just dawned on me as we were talking, a lot of kind of conversations that I have about digital with a lot of people, we tend to focus a lot on social media, and that's kind of part of where we started. But throughout this conversation, you've been talking about the fact that you do blogs, so therefore that's stuff that goes onto your website. Do you find that actually by doing that helps increase your visibility and stuff like that?
Well, good question. I have to be honest with you, Rob, that I was watching a talk by Ian Dixon, who was talking about obviously this lasts so many seconds on this platform and your blogs last 2 years, that because I'd been so bogged down with the book, I hadn't written anything for 2 years. But also, and hopefully I share this as an example that, I can look like I've got it all together, but I've made some real boo-boos along the way in terms of what I've spent money on, and I don't see them as failings. I just see them as learnings. They're things I went on.
Yeah.
But I had a new website built, and the guy didn't want to work with WordPress, which is what I was familiar with for blogging. So we had step by step listening as a website, and my blog was called SAS Detective, because on my first book, one of the metaphors that came out of it was the strength and solution detective. So actually the blogging didn't work because it was under a different domain name. So it did nothing for my website. And then once I realized I've been investing all this time and money in blogging, and actually it wasn't really taking people to my website. It wasn't really increasing traffic. So beginning of the lockdown, again, another reason perhaps why the book was sidelined, is I actually started to build a new website and put step-by-step listening back on a WordPress site and put my blog back in it. So I'm now in the throes of actually taking the 300 odd blogs that are on my old blog site and repurposing them, putting them back in one a month onto my site.
Yeah.
So the truth is I don't know, but what I do know is that the blog articles serve me with my clients, because if I write about stuff that they commonly have a problem, when a client says to me, I'm struggling with this, I can send them the link to the article and they can read it.
Yeah.
If I'm engaging with other conversations with people online, rather than me coming going, oh, I know this, I go, I have written this article if that's of interest to you. So I find it's not just, I don't find it as effective when I put it out on social media. I do it occasionally.
Yeah.
In terms of engagement, but it's a really useful resource for me to direct my existing clients and potential clients to.
Yeah.
And what I haven't been good at doing, but I'm now developing the skills to do, is actually tracking and measuring where people are clicking, whether that blog is then taking them to the website. That's the bit that is not fully formed in my business, and it's the next level that I need to start paying more attention to. So I don't have facts, but my gut says, from what I've done so far, that when I focus on the teaching stuff and case studies, then it's got value, because I've seen people share the posts.
Yeah.
And give them to other people.
I think you're doing exactly the right thing. Don't disagree with anything that you said. I think that's a really sensible strategy. Part of it will be about search engine optimization. So as you get all those blogs onto your new site, Google will be picking those up and indexing, so that help you when people are searching for you. But I also think, actually, the way you've just described the way you use those articles when you're actually having conversations with your clients or potential clients, of going, look, well, here's something I've already done. Here's the answer. You can go and read it. Is a really useful kind of use of resources, isn't it? It's a really good resource bank.
And can I add in though as well, because I'm literally getting that feedback now, and I talk to people about 3 steps: clarity, confidence, and change. So if you decide right now, I need to be writing blogs, the first thing you're going to have to work out is what you're going to write about. So you might need to get some ideas, that pool of stuff you think, I could write about that, I could write about that. Then you have to get clarity of the process or the structure of your blogs. Then you've got to work out how your creative mind works and how you write at your best, where you write it best. There's all that work that has to go on. Then you have to get from not writing any to writing 1 a week, if that's what you're aiming for. So you might start for 1 every 6 months or 1 a quarter and build them up. And then you have to go through the change process where you go, actually, how can I make it better? And you have to get feedback. So I'm only just now getting feedback from somebody who's saying to me about SEO, because it really does cause overwhelm. I can't get any words out if I'm already trying to fit it into SEO before I started.
Yeah.
So I have to get the words out, and then we have to go, how do we make that first paragraph more SEO friendly, and how do we make the title more SEO friendly? And by doing it that way around, I'm now noticing it's influencing how I write, and it's getting better. But I could not have started at that point.
Yeah. I think that is another really good point, because the way, as you say, it should be writing for the reader, not for Google. Because Google has become so intelligent now that its purpose is always to try and find the best fit for the question that somebody's typing in for. And if you try and spam it in, it doesn't like it in the end, because people will just bounce away from it. But actually, if you've got a really well written article about a particular topic that people want to find the answer for, they'll stay there, they'll read it, because it's written for them, not for Google. Yeah.
And I just think it's important for people to know that I tend to use I stories quite a bit because of the nature of my work I'm doing. It's confidential, and it's often, people don't want people to know, especially if they've got quite a high profile job and they're there they're the motivator for everybody else. They don't want anyone to know what's going on in the inside. Yeah. So some people don't even admit they work with me, and that's all okay. So I often tell stories for myself, but of course people go make it about the reader, make it for the reader. Well, sometimes I have to write it in the I pronoun, leave it a day or two, and then come back and write it in the you pronoun.
Yeah.
And I have to change it. But so I think it's really important for people when it comes to whether it's newsletter writing, blog writing, book writing, social media post writing, people have to get clarity of how they write at their best. And the amount of people, I do spend quite a bit of time working with people on those kinds of things, because we come away from school with hang-ups about our ability to spell, our ability for grammar, whatever it might be. And you have to find what works for you. That is the bit that someone else can't teach you. They can give you frameworks, but you have to know how to get the information from you into a framework. So you have to know your own process, your own way of doing things. And I think it's so easy to find yourself stuck knowing what you ought to do or could do because you haven't found your own way of doing it.
Yeah.
Get started.
Yeah, and again, I think that I think it's the Facebook CEO or CIO or somebody who's coined the phrase about done is better than perfect, and that goes back about sometimes just doing it is better than spending all your time worrying that it is perfect, that it's perfectly written, perfectly SEO proofed and stuff like that. Because again, that is part of goes back to our conversation about getting stressed and overwhelmed.
And I know that I gave my book out to 6 peer reviewers and they thought my book was awesome, by the way. Yeah. They've changed their lives and done things differently, and I'm still getting feedback from them now. So sometimes what I think is not good enough is it will make a difference to other people. And when I read some of my blogs from 5 or 6 years ago, I hold my head in shame because it's like a dear diary. I was like, and today I've been doing this, and today I've been doing that. And it's and that's where I was on my blog writing journey at that point. Yeah. And the people who were reading it were not judging me on whether I was doing it SEO properly or whether it was structured or whatever. They were happy to read what I was writing because they were also at that point with me at that journey. And as I evolve and I know more, I think the hardest bit is when you know better is not, I think I did a post about this a couple of days ago, actually, is when you know better is not to look back and shame yourself for what you didn't know earlier. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part of this work, is that new stuff comes in, you learn how to do things better, and then you look at a piece of your work from in my case 18 years ago, and you think, oh, really, did I really think that was a good idea? It's like, but if you could learn to laugh at yourself and have some fun with this, and remember all of us are on this journey, even if some of us look like we've got it together, we all have our wobbles and our moments, and we have to ask for help. And we've made big mistakes. I've spent so much money on stuff that I now look back and go, really? But there's little nuggets of learning that have come from. I was going to
say, it's all part of the learning, isn't it? Sometimes the learning is, that was a great thing I learned, or actually I've just learned I shouldn't have done that.
I've just learned what not to do rather than what to do. So I spent lots of money on these templates and these sales tactics, and and actually I don't agree with scarcity marketing. I don't believe in fearing people into making a decision, but I do believe in asking them questions that make sure they check with themselves that how long is long enough to pull up with this as it is right now. Because time just goes by. You and I just started out at the beginning when we were chatting, weren't we? We were working out, we'd had dinner, you and your wife and my husband, and got together for a deal. And we think it's 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And sometimes we stay stuck with a problem for a very long time because we're not consciously aware of how much time is passing. Yeah. So I think we have a responsibility in our marketing to say to people, we're here and we can help. And we have to make sure it's available and it's easy, and we've got to make it easy for people to be able to buy. But I really don't like it. And I have got some on my website right now that I'm currently going through and ripping out and changing. And actually, instead of using everybody else's words, I'm going back to just being authentically me. And actually thinking, what would I say if I was actually talking to a human being right now? there's no way I'd go, the ultimate do delegate system that's helped thousands of people's lives. It has transformed loads of lives. And I do use the word ultimately quite a lot. So it's probably a bit of my language, but it is a bit, it's not really who I am.
Yeah.
So it's just the do delegate or ditch system. And it's helped hundreds of people. That's all I need to say.
Yeah. And it goes back to being comfortable with the message and how you're delivering it, that it is you. And I think that's really, really important as well. You know,
and being okay with the fact that I've put stuff out there that's not me. And some people might have looked at it and gone, what? And it's okay. Yeah. It's fine. They've had dinner since then and they've forgotten. It'll be all right.
Oh, that's great. I'm conscious about time. And as I said before we started recording, there's two things I always like people to do for me. One is to give a good piece of advice. Is something that people should always should do, and also then something that you really shouldn't do, or a bit like we said, we've learned to do this, and I tried this, and it's just not me, or whatever. So if you could give me your good bit of advice, and then your don't do that bit of advice, please.
So my top tip of what to do is be yourself. And I also think that I want to add into that sometimes when I used to get told be yourself, it's like we've actually gone on a journey of trying to please everybody else for so long that we've forgotten who we are. So my thing with use your digital marketing to have fun discovering who you are. What do you want your words to say about you? What do you want your clothes to say about you? What do you want your photograph to say about you? Who do you want to be? And actually, you might not be being the person you really want to be right now, but your digital marketing will give you a lovely transformation journey to go back on. You can look at some of my photographs with my long hair and my deerstalker hat from 4 years ago versus now. You can see the transformation. So rather than be yourself, your authentic self, but if you don't like who you are, use social media and your digital marketing as a really playful journey to experiment and learn about who you'd like to be and how you want to show up.
Love that. Great advice. Yeah.
And the avoid would be avoid being overly critical of yourself, because it is a journey. It takes time. And you're only going to get it if you're actually measuring the results. You're looking at what works, what doesn't work, and you're being objective and kind and compassionate with your feedback. So evidence-based, what did you hear and see that didn't work? Because I think we don't bother to look back on it because it's like, I don't want to look at myself. But if you don't look at your own videos, if you don't look at your blog posts with a little bit of time and distance behind them and look at what worked about them, what didn't work and what could have worked better, really objectively with kindness and compassion in your own feedback, and you don't proactively catch yourself getting things right, you will give up doing it. And I guess I want to leave it with everybody is, yes, some things haven't changed, Rob. Some of us, we're all saying the same sort of thing, but I also truly believe that right here, right now, whoever you are that's out there, even if you're saying exactly the same thing as me, you'll have a different accent, you might be a different height, you might be a different color, and your journey, there's an audience out there right now that they'll only get the message when you speak.
Yeah.
And so if you stay quiet thinking I've said it already, there's a whole load of people who won't get the help because it's your tone of voice, your mannerisms, the way that you dress, the way that you show up, that is going to attract them to come in and actually pay attention to the lessons to be learned. And I truly believe that we've all got a purpose. We don't have to search for it. We're already doing it.
Yeah, no, I get everything. I love what you just said. That's really good. So finally, if people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to reach out and find you?
My website is www.stepbystep.listening.com. You're very welcome to go there. As you might notice already, though, I'm doing a lot of overalls on that at the moment. I'm quite prolific on LinkedIn, so please come and find me at LinkedIn. I think it's /Sheryl Andrews. Rob will tell you that that's correct or not.
Yeah.
And we have got a Facebook page called Step by Step Listening as well, so you can come and find us there. But either of those, or you can get me on my email, Sheryl@stepbystep.listening.com.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for your time today, Sheryl, and everything you've shared with our viewers. And I think I can't remember if we said this during the interview or beforehand that you were talking about you'll make it happen Monday into a podcast at some point. I've got the same plans, so eventually this will be listeners as well as viewers. So that's
Fabulous,
really good.
fabulous. Well, let's see what we can do to make that happen and support each other then, Rob. So thank you for having me here today.
Sounds good. Brilliant. Okay, look forward to it. And yeah, I can look forward to keep seeing your posts and videos. All right, cheers.